The Friday started with the perfect excuse. I'm going to Clara's bachelorette party. Don't wait up for me. She said it in front of the mirror, adjusting a dress that wasn't for a friend who has a few drinks. It was for someone who wants to be looked at. I asked her the time, the place, if anyone I knew was going. Only girls, she answered, and left the phone charging like someone leaving an alibi on the table. I was left with a discomfort in my stomach. That dull stab that doesn't make noise, but holds you by the neck. I put on a game in the background. I killed time with dinner. And at midnight, the silence of the house already seemed like a heavy joke to me. My mobile rang. The screen said Ball's mom. I answered thinking anything, except what I heard. Do you know where Valeria is? She won't answer me. I've been calling her for an hour. I lied without breathing. She's at a bachelorette party with her friends. I'll message her now and tell her to call you. I hung up and looked at the spot where she usually leaves a ring. When she goes out, just for a while, empty. I opened WhatsApp, called 3 friends. No one answered. I checked Instagram stories of old drinks uploaded hours ago. The hunch got heavier. I saw myself in the entrance mirror. Either I swallowed the official version, or I went out to search for the truth with the shame of someone who fears confirming it. I grabbed the keys. The place wasn't far. A multi-space salon with a pretentious name and neon lights. On the facade, there were laughs and streams, machine smoke, and music with the bass thumping your chest. I paid the entrance without looking at the receptionist. I crossed a hallway with pink balloons, plastic crowns, and a selfie mural that said Tim Bride. Upon opening the main door, the spectacle hit me. Rotating cages, chairs in a circle, women with headbands, and a low stage where an oil guy did pirouettes with a belt between his teeth. I wasn't there to judge a silly night. I was there to find my wife and get rid of my mother-in-law's call, like someone putting out a fire with a glass. I saw her at the second flash of lights. Valeria wasn't in the group, clapping from the tables. She was in front of me from the stage, half naked, with the dress rolled up at the waist, like a tourniquet and a fluorescent collar that marked her as if she were part of the show. A dark-skinned, muscular, sweaty man held her by the back with one arm, and with the other guided her hand over his shiny abdomen. She laughed with that laugh that I hadn't heard at home for months. Around, the friends were filming. No one seemed to think about Dee, and a mother on the other side of the city asking for her daughter. I didn't make a scene. I walked between sticky tables, plastic cups, streamers, until 2 steps away. The guy looked at me with that confidence of someone who gets paid to be an object. My woman with the unbridled complicity of someone who has forgotten she has a last name. I took out the phone, dialed her mother's, and without looking away said, "Ma'am, I already saw her." I hung up. The stripper smiled as if I were part of the script. Valeria tried to hide the smile behind her hair. I brought my mouth to her ear and spoke, so low that only she heard me. We're going to pretend this is a game until the music turns off. Then I took a step back and raised the camera. I wasn't looking for likes or immediate revenge. I was looking for memory. What came after was going to need it. And I put the mobile in my pocket after taking the photo and stepped back a few steps, leaving the noise and lights to swallow the scene again. I didn't need to make a scandal there. I wasn't going to give them the spectacle of seeing me humiliated in front of everyone. I walked to the bar, ordered a glass of water, and stood watching as if I were a stranger in a cheap movie. Valeria kept dancing among laughs with that guy, though now with less enthusiasm. Perhaps because she had noticed that I hadn't left. There was no fury in me yet, but an icy calm. I thought about her mother's call, about how I was going to look her in the eyes when she asked if I knew where her daughter was. That calm was worse than any scream, because it meant I had nothing left to lose. When the song ended, the lights went down and the host announced a break. Several women ran to the bathroom among laughs, others to the bar for more drinks. Valeria clumsily adjusted her dress and walked to a table where 2 friends were waiting for her. I approached slowly. The chair screeched when I sat in front of her. Her eyes opened wide, as if she finally understood that this wasn't a bad dream. "What are you doing here?" she asked with a hoarse voice. "The same as you watching a show," I answered without looking away. Her friends looked at each other and disappeared with the excuse of ordering another round. "We're alone." She tried to compose herself, took out the mobile as if looking for refuge in the screen. I extended my hand and took it from her without violence, just with firmness. Your mother called me. She was worried because you weren't answering. I told her you were at a bachelorette party. Do you want to show her what I saw? Valeria swallowed. Her runny makeup shone under the neon light. It was nothing. It's part of the game. She stammered. I laughed dryly. Part of the game is laughing, not undressing the arms of a stranger while your friends record it. She lowered her gaze, biting the edge of the empty glass, not knowing what else to say. I got up and walked to the exit without looking at her, giving her the chance to follow me. I heard her heels behind stumbling against the slippery floor. Outside, the night air smelled of stale beer and cigarettes. We stood face to face under the glowing sign of the place. Don't dramatize. It was just a stupidity, she said, crossing her arms. I took out the phone again, opened a photo, and held it between us. This isn't stupidity, Valeria. This is the beginning of the end. I put the mobile away and added, tomorrow we start talking about lawyers. And no, it's not a threat. It's the only way out left. The taxi I ordered arrived right away. I opened the door and gestured for her to get in. She stood still, trembling with rage and fear, while the club lights kept blinking behind. I got in alone and gave the home address. From the window, I saw her light a cigarette with clumsy hands. She wasn't crying. She wasn't calling me. She just stood still, like someone who finally understands they've run out of masks. The engine started and I drove away, thinking that the real hell hadn't been seeing her with another man, but confirming that everything I believed I was protecting in our marriage hadn't existed for a long time. The only thing left for me now was a decision to rebuild myself, even if for that I had to reduce to ashes what we had shared. The next morning I woke up before the sun. I barely slept, but I didn't need it either. The rage had transformed into a kind of icy clarity. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with the mobile in hand, reviewing the photo I had taken at the club. It wasn't just a memory, it was proof. Shortly after I heard the lock turn, Valeria came in with a wrinkled dress and swollen eyes. She looked at me as if she wanted to get ahead of my words, but I didn't give her a chance. Sit down, I ordered, and the tone reminded her that I was no longer negotiating. She collapsed in the chair, lit a cigarette, and started with the expected speech that she had drunk too much, that everyone did the same at those parties, that I was exaggerating. Her script was so poor that it even made me pity her. I showed her the photo without saying anything. She shrank in her seat, and upon seeing that she wasn't going to convince me, she changed strategy tears. She hit the table with her hands and shouted that I was a controller, that I was trying to ruin her life over stupidity. I watched her in silence, sipping my coffee, until the fury in her voice faded away. Then I spoke. The one who ruined everything was you. I'm just going to sign what you yourself decided last night. Valeria then tried a third move, emotional manipulation. Are you a throwaway years together over one night? She asked with that mix of plea and reproach that she had used so many times to twist arguments. I answered without raising my voice. It's not one night. It's everything that night means. You're not a victim of anything. You put yourself there by choice. Her tears dried up suddenly, and instead of regret, I saw in her eyes the rage of knowing herself discovered. She accused me of wanting to destroy her, of not being man enough to forgive. That phrase, the same one she had used so many times as a dagger, no longer hurt me. It only confirmed to me that I had taken the right path. That same day I called a lawyer, explained what happened, and sent in evidence. He told me what I already intuited, with photos, testimonies, and her own history of lies. The divorce could be resolved in my favor. We started preparing the case in silence. I didn't want unnecessary confrontations. Every word she threw at me like poison, I answered with indifference. I learned that calm despairs a manipulator more than any scream. Meanwhile, I kept more evidence, late-night messages, bank statements with expenses that never added up, screenshots of deleted stories, everything in folders, everything organized. Valeria noticed my coldness and began to act differently outside the home. She called my friends to paint me as a jealous monster. She wrote to my mother with invented stories about supposed abuses. But I got ahead. I had already talked to them. I had already shown them the truth. No one believed her. She isolated herself in her own theater, each time with less audience. And I, instead of feeling compassion, felt immense relief, because I understood that her greatest punishment wasn't going to be the divorce, but that her lives would collapse on their own. The woman I once thought I knew was running out of mask in front of everyone, and I finally had the certainty that this time it wasn't going to be me who was left without words. The day of the first hearing came faster than I imagined. I showed up with a lawyer and a thick folder under my arm. Valeria was already there, sitting with her lawyer, with a sober dress that didn't resemble at all the woman I had seen that night at the club. She had rehearsed her role, teary eyes, victim gesture, broken voice. As soon as she started talking, she launched the accusation I expected, that she was a psychologically abused wife, that I controlled her, that I followed her everywhere, and that she had lost her freedom with me. The judge listened to her with patience, taking notes. I remained silent, with my hands clasped on the table, waiting my turn. When the moment came, my lawyer stood up and laid out the evidence, as if they were cards on a poker table. First a photo at the club with her, in the arms of that half-naked guy. The murmur in the room was immediate. Then the bank statements with payments to nightclubs and hotels. Then the screenshots of messages that spoke for themselves. Each document was another nail in the coffin. The judge looked at her, directly looking in her gestures for some coherence. Valeria squirmed in the chair, biting her lip, unable to hold the gaze. Her mask was cracking in front of everyone. She tried to counterattack, accusing my evidence of being manipulated. But the lawyer had already foreseen it. He presented witnesses who confirmed my words. One of them was a neighbor from the building who had seen me come in and out that night heading to the place, worried about my mother-in-law's call. That testimony was key. It not only reinforced the veracity of the photo, but left an evidence that I hadn't planned anything. The story was simple and solid. She had lied. She had betrayed me, and now she was trying to bury me under falsehoods. The judge, serious, asked for order and warned that accusations without evidence had no weight in his court. When we left the room, Valeria looked for me with her gaze. She didn't shout at me. She didn't cry. She just glared at me with mute hatred. Her strategy had crumbled, and she knew it. Her lawyer tried to recompose her speaking in her ear, but the rage on her face was impossible to hide. I, on the other hand, felt a strange calm, like someone who finally sees a clear horizon after months of storm. It wasn't euphoria or revenge. It was pure relief. I had endured her lies, her games, her attempts to manipulate everyone around me, and yet I was standing. In the following days, her social circle started to crack. Friends, who before applauded her story, stopped answering her calls. Relatives who had pointed at me with doubts asked me for apologies. The truth spread on its own, without me having to push it, and Valeria, cornered, began to show her worst side. Late-night messages, veiled threats, pleas disguised as reproaches. I didn't respond to any. Indifference was my most powerful weapon. She wanted to drag me into her mud. But I had already decided to walk on firm ground, and every step I took toward the divorce was a silent victory that didn't need applause. The sentence came on a rainy Tuesday, one of those days that seemed designed to close chapters. The judge was direct. Divorce granted for proven infidelity, attribution of the housing to me, and rejection of any type of economic compensation that she pretended to demand. I listened to every word like someone removing a stone from their chest one after another. Valeria stayed rigid with her jaw clenched, trying to hold a dignity that no longer existed. I didn't smile or celebrate. I just bowed my head in thanks and picked up the papers. There was nothing more to discuss. The marriage was dead, and the court act was its death certificate. The news spread quickly among our circles. She, in a last attempt to save face, posted on networks that she had decided to free herself from a controlling man. But no one bought it anymore. Her own friends leaked sarcastic comments, reminding her that they had been forced to keep quiet that night at the club. Her family, tired of defending the indefensible, stopped giving her support. The fall was slow, public and painful, and I observed from a distance, without intervening, with the serenity of knowing that legal and social justice had done its job. The irony was clear. The woman who sought to leave me in ruins was being devoured by her own lie. In parallel, my life started to order itself in ways I didn't imagine. With the divorce closed, the house stopped being a battlefield. I painted walls, changed furniture, gave away everything that smelled like her. It was like pulling weeds to let something new grow. I slept better, ate better. Even the air seemed different. I invited friends again to laugh in the living room, without feeling that someone was evaluating me. I discovered that loneliness was an enemy, but the base to start from zero. And little by little, that silence that before tormented me became the sound of my own freedom. Valeria, desperate, still tried to contact me. Messages at odd hours, calls from unknown numbers, emails with veiled threats. I never responded. Each attempt of hers became proof of her obsession, and the folder with digital records grew in case one day I needed to use them. But inside me there was no hatred left, only indifference. I had understood that the true revenge wasn't exposing her more, but showing that without her my life improved every day. While she sank in a sea of excuses, I built a future on firm ground. Months later, leaving work, I ran into her by chance on a central street. She was thinner, with unkempt hair and a dull gaze. She stopped for a second, as if waiting for a gesture from me, a sign that I still cared. But I just kept walking with my head high and the certainty engraved on my skin. The man she had called controlling and jealous was the same one who had shown the strength to break chains and not look back. That was my final victory. Silent but absolute. With time, I understood that the true story hadn't been Valeria's infidelity, but my awakening. For years I had gotten used to walking on tiptoes, to measure words so as not to provoke arguments, to accept slights as if they were a natural part of couple life. Her betrayal was just a spark that ignited a fire that was already full of gasoline. The divorce gave me what I never thought I would have, the opportunity to rebuild myself from zero, without asking permission. I discovered that freedom wasn't just sleeping without her shadow beside me, but also being able to make small decisions, without the weight of constant judgment. That piece isn't negotiated. I started to fill my days with things I had left behind because of her contempt. I resumed photography, that hobby she called a waste of time. I bought a new camera, and every weekend I went out to tour the city capturing streets, faces, and sunsets. In those walks, I realized that I had been looking at the same landscape with clouded eyes, that now I could see it with renewed clarity. I also returned to the gym not to prove anything to anyone, but to feel good with myself. Every drop of sweat was like a purge of the insults I had carried in silence. The relationship with my family also changed. During the marriage, Valeria had done everything possible to isolate me, sowing the idea that they meddled too much in our life. After the divorce, I sought them again without fear and found support that had never disappeared. My mother, who once cried thinking I was a guilty one, hugged me upon seeing the sentence and told me, "I told you, the truth always comes out." Those words were like a balm. My brother invited me to travel, to laugh again in confidence. Little by little, the family cracks closed. About Valeria, I heard from third parties that she had tried to remake her life with that same man from the club who then left her, that she was changing jobs every few months because her reputation pursued her. I didn't feel pleasure in hearing those rumors. On the contrary, they provoked in me a mix of pity and distance. I didn't want her ruin. The only thing I desired was that her name stop matching to me, and that's how it happened. Every time someone mentioned her, I responded with indifference. That, more than any sentence, was the proof that I was already free. Because the true closure isn't given by a judge, but by the moment when the memory stops hurting. Today I live with another mentality. I don't seek to prove anything. I don't need titles of real man or comparisons with the past. It's enough for me to look at my days and know that they are built with honesty. I learned that dignity is the base of any relationship, and that when someone tramples it, there is no promise that repairs it. If I ever love again, it will be from that place of self-respect that cost me so much to recover. Valeria wanted to leave me ridiculous, wanted to ruin me with lies, but she ended up being the one who got trapped in them. I, on the other hand, stand with the certainty that my story didn't end in that club, but started again when I decided to leave through the door with my head high.